Thank you for joining. This is C.Z.Richie, reading The Fledgling of Frostholm by C.Z.Richie, Chapter 8. Chapter 8. What about my Ember? Flare, Tuesday, Father's 3rd. Flare and Olivia, Flare's new Aquamancer friend, were the first to enter Professor Neil's classroom for the first morning of classes. Flare was so excited to have her efficiencies read. Not even the idea of being taught by Neil, the water mage, put a damper on her mood. She took in the Aquamancer's room, which had a certain charm. The constant sound of running water radiated throughout the room from dozens of fountains and water constructs. There were 4 rows of 4 desks, separated into 2 equal groups by a large fountain running the room length. Flare realized that one desk was missing. "Teacher, did you know that a desk is missing?" Flare asked. Neil was thumbing through a hefty tome. He said a cantrip to hold his spot and gently closed the book. Yes, Apprentice Lucas decided this was not the school for him. He left the program. "Oh, really?" the young pyromancer squealed. Flare decided that the best seat was front and center, so she pulled Olivia to sit next to her. Within minutes, all 15 of the young students had found their chairs. When Ilaria walked in, Flare couldn't help but grimace. "She won't even acknowledge me, like she thinks she's better than me," Flare thought. Bitch. At exactly 8, Professor Neil pushed the door closed. As it stopped, Flare realized that the flat pane was made of liquid water instead of glass, and shimmered with the sudden stop. "Good morning, my precious young stars. Look at you, just beaming with potential. Now, we teachers have concluded the status of every student here, and we decided on this." 4 lists of names appeared at the front of the room, each belonging to the 4 teachers who taught the first-year students. Professor Neil. Rank 8, Paris, 2-1. Rank 9, Callow, 2-1. Rank 10, Benji, 2-1. Rank 17, Dracon, 1-1. Rank 19, Bodnell, 1-1. Rank 26, Eliza, 1-1. Rank 27, Sin, 0-1. Rank 30, Fia, 0-1. Rank 35, Mason, 0-1. Rank 38, Chlora, 0-1. Rank 48, Oziad, 0-1. Rank 49, Ilaria, 1-0. Rank 53, Flare, 0-1. Rank 57, Marin, 0-1. Rank 61, Olivia, 0-1. Lucas has left the program. "Oh no," Olivia whispered. "I'm at the bottom." Whispers and mutters filled the room as everyone saw where they were and commented. "Next time, if you don't drown yourself, you'll only go up, okay?" Flare said, trying to console her new friend a little bit. Flare had made friends with the struggling Aquamancer while they waited for their respective fights the day before. Flare tried not to cringe, remembering Olivia's accident. "Freshmen, as you can see, there are only 15 names in this class." Lucas decided that he could not take the heat. "If the thought of fighting is too much for you, then I encourage you to leave now. Spire is a difficult and demanding place. If you aren't giving your all, you don't belong here. The sorcerers of Spire don't bow down, they—" "Rise up," murmured the class. Neil walked in front of his desk and gestured with grand, sweeping motions. "No, freshmen, I won't be happy with mediocrity. I won't tolerate dropouts from here on out. Some teachers here at Spire press their students until they break, but not me. I believe you will all make it to next year if you try hard enough, if you put in the passion. What do we do here at Spire?" "Rise up," the class shouted. Neil beamed at the students. "He's like a kid," Flare thought. Flare looked at the list closely before saying, "Excuse me, teacher, but if Ilaria beat me, why is she only 4 ranks ahead? Shouldn't she be, higher?" During Ilaria's only fight, she hardly cast any spells. She won, but chose not to try to continue. I'm sorry, Ilaria, but most teachers thought you have low drive, Neil apologized. Flare grinned and turned in her seat to see Ilaria's devastated reaction. You went through all that hurt for nothing. Ilaria just sat there. She looked bored. Flare's grin melted away as she turned back to Neil. We will never replace the lost students, so you have only lost competition here today. At the end of the year, anyone ranked below 40 will not be advancing. Neil took a moment to lock eyes with the 5 students at the bottom of the class. What do we do if we are at the bottom? Olivia asked. Olivia was the only one who brought such a bulky arcane focus to class. It was a full-length staff, with a rounded end painted blue. It was taller than Olivia was, and she awkwardly held it aloft while sitting. That is a great question, Olivia. Once per week, you can challenge anyone above you to a duel. Those at the top shouldn't get comfortable because those at the bottom will aim to dethrone. They have less to lose. As Neil walked back and forth, he would make wide gesticulations with his arms. At the very least, he was a spirited and lively teacher. Additionally, your ranks will be affected by the mid-year and end-year appraisals. Finally, none of you have to leave my class this year. You can easily make it to the top 40 if you all work together and work hard. Any questions? 14 hands raised. Of course, the only person to not raise their hand was Ilaria. The bitch seemed to be asleep. She had her arms crossed, and her eyes were closed. Neil pointed to Flare for her question. She smirked and said, Ilaria is asleep. Is that, okay for such a great institution? Without looking up, Ilaria responded, Neil, I'm not asleep. I'm in WI. Neil brightened at Ilaria's response. Wonderful. That is dedication. That'll be fine if you can maintain focus and demonstrate the basics. Flare, snitching on a fellow blue is disappointing. I only just got done saying that you should all work together. I want us to be like a family, and I suspect if you saw Ilaria as family, you wouldn't have felt the need to tattle. Flare scoffed again and said under her breath, She was the one that was sleeping. The unexpected admonishment made her sink in her chair. As the question well started to dry, Neil continued with the day's second goal, teaching basic magic. Magic has 2 forms, chaotic and formation. Today, I will teach you how to use your mana to craft cantrips of your efficient schools. Neil gestured, cast a spell, and a diagram floated in the air. There are 6 elements, 6 base formations of mana. All of you think back to when your talent emerged. You felt your element overflow and manifest in a multitude of ways. But did you know that the element that came naturally might not be your most efficient? Neil summoned an image of a drop of water, and then a second of a bolt of electricity. The water droplet shimmered as it floated, and the lightning bolt crackled and danced with life. To find efficiency with mana, there is this tool, the Mana Siphon. With a flourish, Neil produced a 6-sided box. Neil held the box in his hand, and then one side of the cube glowed a deep blue. I am most efficient with water magic, but my talent actually emerged as... Neil turned the box to show off a dark purple side existed. My mana is perfectly efficient with water, but only mostly efficient with electricity. Today, we will be finding your efficiencies. Multiple efficiencies are rare, but we need to know if you have them. Knowing your efficiencies will make your training more effective and give you more options in combat. We will start with Paris and make our way down the list. You will each receive elemental wands for the efficiencies you display. Paris was a very handsome young man. He had sweeping dark brown hair and striking ruby-colored eyes. Pinned to his blue tunic was a pin for his class ID. and on the opposite side was his family crest. He swaggered forward from the back of the class. When Paris put his hand on the cube and pushed mana into it, the purple and red sides both lit up brightly. The first ranked in the class smirked. Neil handed Paris the purple and red wands that would allow him to cast electric and heat magic. Congratulations, Paris. You are perfectly efficient with heat and electricity. Paris held his smirk and addressed the class. I knew already, but now you all know. I am better. Callow let out a good-natured laugh at Paris's antics. It made Flare swoon. Then Flare immediately scolded herself. You're not a little girl. Get over him. You're not a little girl. Get over him. Callow was the next highest ranked in the class. He stood up, wearing a simple blue vest with his class pin. Flare couldn't stop herself from admiring his bare, strong arms. His muscles had filled out since they graduated from the academy 3 months ago. The cube said that Callow was perfectly efficient with ice magic. Next up was a strange-looking boy named Benji. He had a lithe build, pink hair, and long pointed ears. An elf? What is a fucking elf doing at Spire? One at a time, the class made their way to the front of the room, had their efficiencies read, and then returned to their seats. After Paris, everyone had only one efficiency, as expected. That was the case until it was Ilaria's turn. The bitch with the wide-brimmed hat trudged her way to the front of the class. Flare started to get up and walk to the front of the class. She was next. However, Ilaria was stalling. Flare looked at the cube in Ilaria's hands, and not a single side lit up. A dim brown light was hardly visible on one side, and the other 5 seemed devoid of light. Flare could see the readouts from this distance. Ilaria's efficiencies seemed to all read as scarcely efficient. The freak with the black hair smiled while she looked at the cube, and then she started to laugh. Oh no, the sheltered girl is having a panic attack! Teacher! Flare shouted, standing right behind Ilaria, ready to get her rating from the cube. Neil studied the cube and wrinkled his brow. Are you all right, Ilaria? He asked with genuine confusion and worry. Yes, I'm sorry. I just thought of something funny, Ilaria responded. Neil watched Ilaria and said, Please stay after class. Ilaria. Here. Almost as an afterthought, Neil handed Ilaria a wand for geomancy, which was technically her primary element. After Ilaria, Flare learned she was fire efficient. Flare already knew, but this confirmed she was perfectly efficient, higher than she'd hoped. That's right, I burn bright bitches. Oh, sorry for cursing, teacher. Also, I don't need the stick. I have my own. Then it was Marin's turn. She pushed her magic into the cube, and the results were resplendent. She turned to Neil. Teacher, is it broken? Marin asked. When Naren turned and held the cube out to Neil, 3 of the cube's sides glowed brightly, and a 4th shimmered faintly. Marin was perfectly efficient in aquamancy, extremely efficient in cryomancy and aeromancy, and had partial efficiency in pyromancy. The only dark sides were purple and brown. Neil gently took the cube back and reset it to show his efficiencies with water and lightning before handing it back to Marin. Go ahead and try again. When Marin tried again, this time she pushed even more mana into it, hoping to get an accurate reading. The results were the same. As the cube glowed on 4 sides, the class watched in awe. Flare burned with a jealous intensity. The imp was fresh off the farm, and by a lucky coincidence, was over 3.5 times better at magic than she was. Wow, that is so nice for you. You must feel so special to be born this way. Callow laughed again, responding, We had the same tutor, Flare, and she was not cheap. You would be in the top 10 if you put as much effort into your studies as you did pretending you were better than others. Flare turned her head to glare at the owner of the familiar voice. Frick you, Callow. You're just salty that Bren and I both turned you down. Tip, salt and ice don't go well together. Callow smiled at her display, as if she had said something funny. His reaction made Flare deflate in her chair. It wasn't any use. Flare knew she was defensive, even if she thought she was flirting. Flare knew that Callow thought she was a bitch. Stop fucking doing that, she thought, berating herself. Neil stepped forward to take control of the situation. He smiled, took the cube back from Marin, and handed Marin the 4 wands she showed efficiency with. All right, everyone. Let's return to our seats and move on to the lesson for today. We're starting an exciting chapter of your lives, but now it is time for the boring thaumaturgical basics. One student stood in front of Neil still. Her face was red with embarrassment. Olivia stood there awkwardly, holding onto her oversized staff. Surprise spread over Neil's face for a split second before it melted into a charming smile. But only after we get Miss Olivia's readings, of course. Marin. The rest of the class consisted of students showing their proficiency at creating cantrip spell circles. Marin was the only student who didn't know how to create the circle. Each student demonstrated their ability to make a mental circle and cast a cantrip to give the circle form of their respective element. Marin started to think that the class would turn on her for being behind. She thought that at any second, Flare or someone else would ask the value of teaching just one student today's lesson when they could move on and become more effective as a group. Instead, someone else spoke up. Benji was an elven ward from Arcane. The elves were mysterious and dangerous, but Benji seemed to have the patience of a saint. He sat next to Marin and said, "When you will the circle into existence, you're trying to draw the entire diagram with your mind. That is too difficult. Simply picture a dot in your mind, and then will the dot to grow into the spell circle, like a sprout rapidly growing into a tree." As Benji explained, he created a dot out of electricity that pulled out wider to become the cantrip spell circle. This simple lesson clicked with Marin. She poured her willpower into a single point, and then imagined that point growing into the spell circle. However, she couldn't quite prove it was real, since she couldn't manifest it with an element. I think I have it." "Then push your mana through it. Nothing more than a stream," Callow said ahead of her. Marin closed her eyes, breathed deeply, and willed her mana into the circle she hoped existed. There was a cold sensation as her mana pushed into the ring and manifested into the world as snow. Unfiltered, the dominant air, cold, and water mana blew forth from Marin's hands as a gust of snowflakes. The miniature flurry blew upward and started to land next to her, mainly onto Alaria's hat. The entire lesson plan was the majority of the class helping Marin learn the elemental runes for her 4 efficiencies, and then watching as she made each of those basic cantrips. A kind, stout woman named Clora taught Marin to form the most basic water rune and use that cantrip. Callow and Bodnell showed Marin how to form cold. Eliza and Ozzy showed Marin how to form wind. Finally, the pyromancer, Sin, showed off her proficiency with fire and helped Marin form the cantrip for fire. Fire came out the weakest of Marin's attempts, but she almost cried because of how kind and patient all of her classmates were. Flare. On the road to Spire, Flare initially saw Marin as an easy target. She just knew maybe this year wouldn't be as challenging as the tutor said. At the very least, she was better than the poor little imp. However, there was a special little ember in this imp that Teacher Neil and all of her classmates would nurture and protect. What about my ember? Flare thought. Professor Aaron, Rank 2, Samwin, 3-0. Rank 6, Pierce, 2-1. Rank 12, Cassin, 2-1. Rank 14, Narrator, 1-0. Rank 16, Sifa, 2-0. Rank 23, Feargest, 0-1. Rank 29, Roan, 1-1. Rank 33, Roche, 1-1. Rank 40, Vimek, 0-1. Rank 44, Kyrene, 0-1. Rank 45, Misla, 0-1. Rank 46, Nelson, 0-1. Rank 50, Tilla, 0-1. Rank 54, Valma, 0-1. Rank 59, Rura, 0-1. Rank 61, Garrus, 0-1. Thank you for joining. This has been C.Z.Richie, performing The Fledgling of Frostholm by C.Z.Richie, Chapter 8. Please feel free to read ahead. The Fledgling of Frostholm is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books to Read, and Apple Books. If you'd like to support me directly, please navigate to my Patreon at patreon.com/CZRichie. Thank you so much.